The morning began like most others, quiet, grey, and scented with pine from the forest that hugged the edges of the Silver Moon estate. I'd grown used to the stillness of this place, to the soft hum of nature that seemed to breathe differently here. Some said the air carried whispers of old magic. I'd never dared to listen too closely. My name is Alara, and for the past 3 months I've served as caretaker to the royal children of the Silvernum Kingdom. It wasn't the life I once dreamed of, but it was the only one that gave me peace after the world I knew fell apart. When I first arrived, the palace loomed like something from an ancient tale, stone towers veiled in mist, silver banners fluttering in the cold wind, and silence so heavy it felt alive. The wolves howled often here, but the servants spoke of them the way farmers spoke of storms. Something to be endured, not questioned. I was an outsider in every sense, a human among lichens, living beneath their roof, serving their young. But the children didn't seem to care about bloodlines or the old order. They were kind, wild little hearts with eyes like moonlight and laughter that carried through the marble halls. They made this cold palace feel like home. That morning I sat with the youngest, Leora, by the window. The sun had barely risen, spilling weak light across the frost-touched fields. Leora pressed her tiny hands against the glass, tracing the fog with her fingers. "Do you think Father will come today?" she asked softly. Her voice always tugged at me. "Perhaps," I said, brushing a golden curl from her face. "Kings are busy men." She frowned, as if she already knew better. "He's not busy. He's sad." I hesitated. "Sad? What makes you say that?" She looked down at her hands. "I can feel it when he's near, like a heavy cloud. It makes my chest hurt." The words chilled me. I'd heard rumors. The Lunar and the Alpha King were rarely seen together these days. The palace guards whispered that their bond was fading, that even the moon goddess had turned her face from them. I never asked questions. I only stayed close to the children, as if caring for them could keep me safe from whatever storm was brewing beyond those stone walls. After breakfast, I carried a basket of linens through the West Wing, where portraits of past rulers stared down with sharp golden eyes. Their painted gazes followed me as I walked, and I felt the weight of history pressing against my spine. Every footstep echoed longer than it should have. The Alpha King's presence was everywhere, etched in the carved walls that guarded each archway, reflected in the armor that lined the corridors. Yet I had never seen him up close. Only from a distance, at ceremonies, or when he rode past the courtyard on his black horse. His aura was unmistakable. The air itself seemed to bow before him. Still, I told myself I didn't need to know him. I had my work, my little world within these walls. But lately, something had begun to change. Small, unexplainable things. Candles flickering when I whispered to calm the children. Dreams that lingered long after I woke, dreams of silver eyes watching me through the trees, of a voice calling my name in the wind. I told myself it was exhaustion. The palace could do that to you. Its quiet too heavy, its beauty too sharp. It made you imagine things. By midday, the Lunar's laughter echoed from the grand hall. Another celebration, I guessed. She was a creature of light, radiant, perfect, adored by the nobles who travelled from distant packs to see her. But the servants whispered other things too. That her smile never reached her eyes. That she danced to forget what she had lost. While she feasted, the children played in the nursery, their small voices filling the room with joy. It was in moments like this that I almost forgot where I was. I'd kneel by the hearth, mending a toy or folding blankets, and feel a strange calm, like I belonged to something simple and good. Then, as dusk began to fall, the calm broke. The wind picked up outside, rattling the shutters. Leora stopped her laughter mid-breath and turned to the window. Her brother, Kale, stood beside her. "What is it?" I asked, but neither answered. The temperature dropped so quickly that my breath turned to mist. A low hum filled the air, a vibration deep enough to tremble through the floorboards. I moved closer to the children, heart pounding. "Stay back from the window," I whispered. Then I heard it, distant but unmistakable, the sound of wolves. Not the playful howls that sometimes echoed from the forest, but something deeper, more mournful. The kind of sound that made your bones remember you were small. Cale's eyes glowed faintly, silver in the dim light. "Father's home," he murmured. My breath caught. A shiver raced up my arms. I tried to steady myself, telling my mind not to feed the fear. Yet, as I listened, another sound joined the howls, a heartbeat. Not my own. Louder, closer. A pulse that seemed to echo inside my chest, sinking with mine until I could no longer tell where it began or ended. The door creaked open behind us. I turned, expecting a guard or one of the housemaids. Instead, there was silence, a presence standing in the shadowed doorway. I couldn't see him fully, only the faint glint of silver eyes watching from the dark. The children smiled. "Father," Cale whispered. The figure stepped forward, and the air seemed to change, heavier, charged, alive. His gaze met mine, and for a heartbeat, the world stopped. It was as if something ancient stirred awake inside me, something I had carried all my life without knowing. "Who are you?" His voice was quiet but commanding, carrying the weight of 1,000 winters. "Elara," I managed to say. My throat felt dry. "The caretaker." He said nothing, only studied me for a moment that stretched into eternity. Then, almost too softly to hear, he spoke again. "Strange? The children's fear fades when you're near." Before I could reply, he turned and disappeared down the corridor. His scent like pine, rain, and lightning lingering long after he was gone. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in rhythm with that fading pulse. Outside, the last light of the sun slipped behind the mountains, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold. The wolves howled again, but this time their song felt different, less wild, more like a warning. And though I tried to shake it off, deep inside, I knew nothing about this night was ordinary. Something had shifted in the air, in my bones, in the quiet beat of destiny itself. The Alpha King had seen me, and for reasons I couldn't understand, that changed everything. The next morning, the palace felt different. Quieter, though the servants still moved through the corridors with the same hurried grace. The air held a faint electric charge, as if the night had left something behind, a trace of unseen energy that clung to every shadow. I woke before dawn, unable to shake the feeling that someone or something had been watching me long after the Alpha King left. My dreams had been strange, filled with flashes of silver, and the echo of his voice calling my name, though he never spoke it aloud. I told myself it was nonsense, just nerves, or perhaps the weight of being in his presence for the first time. But deep down, a quieter part of me whispered otherwise. The children were still asleep, bundled beneath wool blankets as pale morning light spilled through the curtains. I stood by the window for a long time, watching mist curl over the forest below. The silver moon land stretched endlessly, rolling hills and silver-tipped trees that glistened like frozen stars. And somewhere beyond them, the Alpha was out there, leading his patrols or meeting his council, unaware that his presence still lingered in my chest like a second heartbeat. When Leora finally stirred, she smiled sleepily. "Did Father come last night?" I hesitated. "Yes," I said softly. "He came to see you." She nodded as if she already knew. "I dreamed of him. And of you. You were both standing under a red moon." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. "A red moon?" She nodded again, eyes half closed. "You were glowing." Before I could ask more, Cale burst into the room, full of morning energy. The spell broke, and I forced myself to smile, hiding the unease curling through my stomach. Children dream of strange things all the time, I told myself. It meant nothing. But later, as I dressed them and guided them to the garden, I caught my reflection in a glass cabinet, and for a fleeting second, I thought I saw it too. A faint shimmer along my skin, like the glint of moonlight trapped beneath the surface. When I blinked, it was gone. The palace gardens were breathtaking this time of year, wild and perfectly kept all at once. The luna's attendants tended every petal with reverence, as if beauty itself were a command. Leora ran through the rows of roses, her laughter floating on the breeze, while Cale chased after her with the pride of an older brother. I sat by the fountain, mending one of their small cloaks, when a servant passed carrying a tray of silver goblets. She paused beside me. "Strange times," she murmured, glancing at the sky. "The Alpha doesn't often visit the nursery, you know. You must have made quite an impression." Her tone wasn't cruel, just curious, but it still made my stomach tighten. "I only did my duty." The servant smiled knowingly. Sometimes fate decides what duty looks like. She moved on before I could reply, her words hanging in the air like a secret I wasn't ready to hear. As the morning wore on, the palace buzzed with preparation. Another feast, another night for the Luna to dazzle her guests and remind the world she was still queen of this house. The cooks worked tirelessly, the maids hurried with silks and jewels, and somewhere deep in the West Wing, music began to echo through the marble halls. I should have felt invisible among them. I usually did. But today, I couldn't shake the sense that eyes followed me everywhere I went. In the reflection of polished floors, in the mirrors that lined the corridors, even in the shadows cast by torchlight, something watched, measured, waited. By dusk, the palace glowed with candles and laughter. I stayed in the nursery with the children, as always. The music drifted up from the great hall, soft, haunting, almost mournful despite its beauty. Cale had fallen asleep quickly, but Leora fought her dreams. "Tell me a story," she whispered, her small hand curling around mine. "What kind of story?" "One about the Moon Mother," she said, yawning. "The one Father told us before Mother stopped asking him to." I hesitated. The tale was forbidden for servants to speak, but her eyes, so much like her father's, pleaded softly. So I told it. I told her how the Moon Mother had once loved a mortal king, how their bond had been pure but impossible, how she blessed his line with the gift of shifting under her light, so that part of her love might live forever in his blood, and how, legend said, every few generations, one soul would be born carrying the echo of that first divine bond, a connection that could never be denied, no matter how time or duty tried to tear it apart. When I finished, Leora's eyes were already closing. "Do you think that could happen again?" she murmured. "Perhaps," I said softly. "If the moon willed it." She smiled faintly. "Then maybe that's why you're here." Her words brushed through me like a whisper of wind. I sat by her side long after she drifted into sleep, the faint glow of candlelight painting the room in shades of gold. The story had left something stirring in me, a tremor, a pull I didn't understand. Then, somewhere in the distance, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. I rose quietly, heart quickening. But when I opened the nursery door, the corridor was empty. Only silence. Still, the air felt alive again, charged, like the moment before a storm. I turned back to the children's room, intending to snuff out the candles, when I noticed something strange. The wooden wolf carved above the hearth, a symbol of the royal bloodline, was glowing faintly along its edges, threads of silver weaving through the grain like veins of light. I stepped closer, breath catching. The glow pulsed once, then faded, as if it had only wanted me to see it for a moment. My hand trembled as I reached for it, feeling warmth where there should have been only cold wood. And in that instant, I could have sworn I heard a heartbeat echo through the walls a deep, steady rhythm that wasn't my own. Then came the faintest whisper, carried on the air like smoke. "You are not what you think you are." I froze. The voice was neither man nor woman, neither near nor far, it simply existed, pressing softly against my thoughts like a memory that wasn't mine. The silence that followed was so complete it made my ears ring. When I finally looked up, the reflection in the glass window showed the room exactly as it was, 2 sleeping children, a dimming fire, and me standing still as stone. But just before I turned away, I saw it again just for a heartbeat, a faint silver shimmer beneath my skin. The following evening, the palace came alive again, music drifting through marble halls, lanterns flickering like captured stars. Another celebration for the lunar. Another night where laughter hid something darker beneath its surface. I had no place among the glittering guests, and truthfully, I didn't want one. My world was smaller, quieter, the children's laughter, the hum of lullabies, the soft rhythm of my own heartbeat. Yet that night, something in the air pulled at me. A feeling like the hush before a storm, the kind that makes every breath feel borrowed. When the children finally drifted to sleep, I stepped into the corridor, drawn by that unexplainable pull. The castle seemed to breathe around me, shadows stretching, candles swaying though there was no wind. My steps echoed softly on the stone floors, each one leading me farther from the safety of the nursery. From the grand hall below, I could hear the sounds of revelry. The Luna's laughter rang clear, high and musical, followed by the murmur of admirers. But woven beneath it was another sound, a low, commanding voice I recognized instantly, even though I had only heard it once. The Alpha King. His words weren't clear from where I stood, but his tone carried rich, steady, like thunder restrained. There was power in it, and sorrow too, as if every command cost him a piece of himself. I shouldn't have lingered. Servants weren't meant to be seen at such events. But my feet wouldn't move away. I felt it again, that strange vibration beneath my skin, the quiet hum that had haunted me since the night he spoke my name. A sudden draft swept through the corridor, extinguishing half the candles. I turned toward the source and froze. He was standing at the end of the hall. I didn't hear his footsteps. One moment the space was empty, and the next he was there, tall, silent, a presence more than a person. The light from the remaining flames wavered across the walls, never quite touching him fully, as if the shadows themselves were reluctant to let him go. "Forgive me," I stammered, lowering my head. "I didn't mean to intrude." He didn't speak right away. The silence between us felt alive, pulsing like a heartbeat. When he finally did, his voice was softer than before, yet it carried the same weight that made the air tremble. "You have nothing to apologize for." I looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time in clear light. There was no anger in it, only curiosity, and something else I couldn't name. "You care for them well," he said quietly. "My children. They trust you. They're kind," I managed. "They make it easy." His lips curved, but it wasn't quite a smile. "Kindness is rare among my blood. You must have a gift." "I only do what I can," I said, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Yet you do more than most." The way he said it, it wasn't praise, but recognition, as though he saw something in me I didn't even see myself. His gaze lingered, and the faint hum under my skin deepened, spreading warmth through my chest. For a long moment we simply stood there, the distance between us charged with something unspoken. The world seemed smaller around him, quieter, as though time itself had paused to listen. Then from the hall below, the Luna's laughter broke through, bright and sharp like the shatter of glass. His eyes flickered toward the sound, and the faint light in them dimmed. "I should return," he said, though his voice carried no real conviction. I nodded, stepping aside to let him pass. But as he moved closer, the air grew heavy again, laced with that strange electricity I couldn't ignore. He stopped beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his presence. "There's something about this place," I said before I could stop myself. "It feels alive." His gaze returned to me. "It is. The palace was built where the Moon Mother's tears fell. Her magic runs deep in its walls. It listens even now." His words sent a quiet shiver through me. "And what does it hear tonight?" He tilted his head, studying me for a heartbeat. "Restlessness," he murmured. "And a heart that doesn't yet know what it's seeking." I swallowed hard, unsure if he meant mine or his own. Before I could ask, he stepped away. But something strange happened then. As he passed, the candlelight flared bright, burning steadier than before. The chill in the corridor faded, replaced by a soft warmth that lingered long after he was gone. I stood there, heart pounding, until the music from below faded into silence. Only then did I realize I could still feel his presence, not beside me, but within me, like a distant echo that refused to quiet. When I returned to the nursery, everything was still. The children slept peacefully, unaware that anything had changed. I tried to convince myself nothing had. But that night, as I sat by the fire, I noticed something strange. On the table beside me lay one of the children's storybooks, its pages fluttering though no wind stirred the room. It opened on its own, stopping at a single line written in faded ink. "When two souls share the same breath beneath the moon's gaze, even fate must bow." I stared at it, my pulse quickening. A coincidence, I told myself. Just a story, nothing more. Yet when I reached to close the book, I felt it again, the faint shimmer beneath my skin, glowing softly like a secret trying to break free. The fire dimmed, the air trembled, and in that fragile silence, a voice brushed my thoughts low, distant, unmistakable. "You felt it too." I turned, heart racing, but the room was empty. Only the moonlight spilled through the window, silver and cold, resting against my hands like the touch of something unseen. For the first time since I came to Silvermoon Palace, I realized the truth. Whatever bound this place together was not finished with me. And neither, I feared, was he. The next few days unfolded like a dream that didn't know if it wanted to be sweet or unsettling. Everything around me seemed the same small cottage, the same soft murmurs of the forest, the same children's laughter echoing in the halls, and yet I felt as if something beneath the surface had shifted. It was like the world was breathing differently, slower and heavier, as if it too was waiting for something to happen. The moonlight looked brighter these nights, and even the air seemed charged with a kind of restless expectancy that set my skin tingling. The children noticed it first. Little Sarah had woken one morning claiming she had dreamed of a wolf standing by the window, watching her but not frightening her. She said its eyes were silver, the same shade as the Alpha King's. I laughed it off gently, brushing her hair away from her face, though the thought made my chest tighten. She had never met him. He was away for weeks at a time, dealing with border disputes and council gatherings. But the way she described that wolf, the way her voice softened in awe, left a strange ache in my heart. That day, the forest seemed louder. Every rustle of leaves made me glance over my shoulder. Even the wind carried whispers that almost sounded like words, though I told myself I was imagining things. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was near. As I hung the laundry in the yard, I saw faint claw marks along the fence. They weren't fresh, but they hadn't been there yesterday. My fingers brushed over them slowly, tracing the grooves in the wood. Too large for a fox, too deliberate for an accident. And yet, something about them didn't frighten me. Instead, a calm, unexplainable warmth bloomed in my chest, as if whoever left them wasn't a threat at all, but a guardian watching from the edges. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind was restless, scraping the branches against the roof like soft knocks. I wrapped myself in a shawl and stepped outside, hoping fresh air would ease my unease. The moon hung heavy and full above the tree line, bathing everything in pale silver light. For a moment, it felt like the whole world had stopped breathing. Then, from the woods, came a low, almost inaudible sound. Not quite a growl, not quite a sigh. My heart quickened, but instead of fear, I felt drawn to it. Each step I took toward the forest made the world around me blur a little more, until all I could hear was the rhythm of my own pulse and the faint whisper of the trees. I didn't see anything, but I could feel something, a presence just beyond sight, powerful and patient, watching. I turned back toward the house, but before stepping inside, I glanced once more at the forest. The moonlight shifted, falling across the path, and for just a breath, I thought I saw a figure, tall, still, cloaked in shadow. And yet, I couldn't tell if it was human or not. When I blinked, it was gone. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was nothing more than exhaustion or imagination. But the world didn't let me. The air smelled different, like rain and iron. The children were restless, sensing something they couldn't name. And when I looked into the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. There was something in my eyes, a light, a question, a longing I didn't understand. Later that afternoon, while preparing supper, I caught sight of something glimmering near the window. It wasn't the light or dust. It was more like a faint shimmer in the air itself, almost like heat rising from the ground. My breath caught as I moved closer, reaching out instinctively. The shimmer pulsed once, faintly, before fading. But in that fleeting moment I heard a voice, deep, calm, and distant, whisper my name. Just my name. And though it vanished almost instantly, it left behind a warmth in my chest that stayed for hours. From that evening onward, the forest became a living thing to me. I began hearing patterns in the wind, feeling eyes on me even in daylight, sensing emotions that weren't mine. Sadness, pride, longing. I knew something was happening, something that couldn't be explained by logic or reason. And somehow, I knew it was connected to him. The Alpha King Dot rumors spread in the village that he had returned from the northern borders. The Luna had arranged a grand feast to celebrate, with music, torches, and laughter echoing through the valley. The whole pack was invited, but I stayed behind, caring for the children as I always did. Yet even from miles away, I could sense his presence, a weight in the air, a pull at the center of my being that refused to let go. As I tucked the little ones into bed, the wind shifted, carrying faint echoes of drums and distant celebration. But beneath it all, I heard something else, a low rhythmic pulse that seemed to come from within me. My hands trembled as I touched my chest, feeling my heartbeat sync with a rhythm that wasn't mine. And then, just as the moon reached its highest point, the youngest pup, barely old enough to speak, sat up suddenly in bed. His eyes were wide and clear as crystal when he whispered, "He's calling you." My breath caught. "Who, darling?" I asked softly, brushing his hair back. He pointed toward the window, his little hand trembling. "The king," he said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "He wants you to come home." The room fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop moving. For a moment, all I could do was stare at the silver-lit forest beyond the glass, the place where I had first felt that presence. And deep inside, something shifted. A knowing, a truth I couldn't explain. I didn't understand it yet, but I knew my life would never return to the quiet simplicity it once held. Something ancient had awakened between us, and it had just begun to call my name. The morning after that strange night felt different, softer somehow, like the air itself was holding its breath. The children still slept soundly, their little hands tucked under their cheeks, peaceful and unaware of the storm quietly gathering beyond our small cottage. I lingered by the window, my eyes drifting toward the forest again, that endless ocean of silver and shadow. Something inside me whispered that I wasn't alone, that the feeling of being watched had changed. It no longer carried the weight of fear. It felt like recognition. The day unfolded slowly, wrapped in a strange kind of calm. As I went about my chores, I could sense a steady warmth around me, a presence that didn't show itself but made everything feel more alive. When I stepped outside to gather firewood, I found a single white feather resting on the doorstep. It shimmered faintly in the light, as if touched by moonfire. I didn't know what it meant, but I felt my heart twist, like it was an unspoken message meant only for me. By afternoon, a messenger arrived from the palace. His cloak was marked with the royal insignia, his face solemn. "His Majesty wishes to see you," he said simply. My hands froze around the water bucket I was carrying. "Me?" I asked, my voice almost breaking. "There must be some mistake." He shook his head. "No mistake. The Alpha King requested you personally." The walk to the palace felt unreal. The path wound through the forest like a secret being shared, and I could feel energy humming under my feet. By the time the gates came into view, my heart was beating faster than I could manage. The grand halls inside shimmered with torchlight, and laughter from the remnants of the feast echoed faintly. But all of that faded when I saw him standing by the window, the Alpha King. He turned as if he had known I was there before I even spoke. His eyes, silver, deep and knowing, met mine with a kind of recognition that made my breath catch. For a heartbeat, it felt as though the air between us remembered something our minds could not. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. His voice was calm, steady, but there was something in it, a note of exhaustion, of longing. "I only came because you called," I replied before I could stop myself. The words slipped out naturally, like an instinct. He tilted his head slightly, as if my response intrigued him. We stood there in silence for a moment, the world narrowing to the quiet pulse between us. He finally gestured toward a chair near the fire. "Sit, please. I owe you thanks for taking care of my children while I was away." "They're wonderful," I said softly, lowering myself into the seat. "They talk about you often. Sierra dreams of wolves with your eyes." That made him smile, a small fleeting thing, but enough to warm the room. "She has the gift," he murmured. "She can see what others cannot." There was something unspoken in his tone, something that brushed against the edge of my thoughts like a half-remembered melody. We spoke quietly for a while, about the children, about the changing woods, about small things that somehow felt enormous. And though I tried to keep my composure, I couldn't stop noticing the way his voice softened whenever he said my name, as if he was tasting it, trying to understand it. At one point, the fire flickered, and a gust of wind swept through the open window. Without thinking, he reached across the space between us and steadied the candle before it could fall. His hand brushed mine for a fraction of a second, barely a touch, and yet my whole body went still. The warmth of it spread through me like sunlight through frost. When our eyes met, neither of us looked away. "I've seen you before," he said finally, his voice low, almost hesitant. I blinked, unsure. "We met once, when the Luna brought the children for the autumn gathering," I said quickly, trying to sound casual. He shook his head slightly. "No, I mean before that. In a dream, perhaps. Or another life." His gaze lingered, searching my face as though he was reading something written there. A chill ran through me, not from fear, but from something deeper, something ancient that stirred quietly beneath my ribs. "I don't remember," I whispered. He smiled faintly. "Not yet." The rest of the evening passed like a page turning slowly. I didn't know why he had summoned me, yet I felt that everything about this meeting had been meant to happen. As I rose to leave, he stopped me with a gentle question. "Do you ever feel as though you are meant for something you cannot name?" I looked at him, unable to speak for a moment. My throat felt tight. "Every day," I said finally. His expression softened, almost in relief. "Then perhaps you understand more than you realize." I left the palace that night under a sky full of restless stars. The air was cool, but I could still feel the heat of his presence clinging to my skin like a memory I didn't want to lose. As I walked, I caught faint glimpses of silver light between the trees. Wolves pacing in the shadows, their eyes glowing softly. They didn't frighten me. Instead, I felt protected, watched over, chosen. When I reached home, the children were already asleep. I sat by the fire, trying to calm my thoughts, but my heart wouldn't settle. His words kept replaying in my mind. "I've seen you before." The sound of them echoed in my chest like a promise that refused to fade. Then, as I leaned back against the chair, something stirred outside. A low, melodic howl that carried through the night. It wasn't a warning. It was a call. I stepped to the window, the moonlight wrapping me in silver glow. And there, at the edge of the forest, I saw him, not as a man, but as a great silver wolf, watching me silently. His eyes gleamed like mirrors of the moon. For a long, breathless moment, neither of us moved. And then, almost imperceptibly, he lowered his head, not in command, but in recognition. It was then that I realized the truth. That made my heart ache and race all at once. The Alpha King wasn't just calling me to his world. He was calling me to him. The days that followed were wrapped in a fragile stillness, the kind that hums just before a storm. I moved through the motions of caring for the Alpha King's children, feeding them, teaching them, tucking them into bed. But my thoughts never truly left that night by the window. The silver wolf's eyes had followed me into my dreams, glowing behind my eyelids, watching me from places beyond sleep. I would wake before dawn, breathless, my heart pounding with the faint echo of a name I didn't remember knowing. And yet, it felt like mine. The forest seemed different now. The trees whispered with new voices. The moonlight bent in curious ways, and I could sense the pull of something vast, ancient, and unseen every time I stepped outside. It was as if invisible threads connected me to everything. The wind, the wolves, and most of all, to him. One evening, as the sky melted into violet dusk, a soft knock came at the door. When I opened it, the Alpha King stood there, cloaked in twilight and silence. His expression was unreadable, though his eyes shimmered with the same silver I'd seen in the forest that night. "I shouldn't have come," he said softly, though his voice betrayed something deeper, something like need. "Then why are you here?" I asked, my hand trembling slightly on the doorknob. He looked away for a long moment, his jaw tightening. "Because I can't stay away." The words hung between us like a confession too heavy for the air. I stepped aside wordlessly, and he entered, his presence filling the small cottage like a tide. The children were already asleep upstairs, leaving only the quiet crackle of the fire to bear witness to our meeting. He stood before the flames, his hands clasped behind his back. "There are things you do not know," he began, his tone careful. "Things I never meant for you to be part of. But it seems fate doesn't ask for permission." Something in me stirred. Fear, curiosity, Hope. I couldn't tell which. What things? I asked. He turned toward me then, and for the first time, I saw the sorrow behind his calm. You've seen me in my other form, he said quietly. But what you may not understand is that you were never meant to. I took a step closer, my voice barely above a whisper. The wolf. That was you. He nodded once. My curse. My nature. My inheritance. I tried to breathe evenly, but my pulse raced. Why show yourself to me, then? Why reveal what you've hidden from everyone else? His eyes softened, their silver gleam dimming like moonlight beneath clouds. Because you called me, he said simply. The words froze me where I stood. I called you? He nodded again, his gaze steady. Not with words, with spirit, with something older than either of us remembers. That night, when you stood by the window, your heart reached for mine, and I answered. I didn't understand it then, but now. He paused, searching for the right words. Now I believe our souls were bound long before this life began. I shook my head slightly, half in disbelief, half in fear of how deeply his words resonated. That's impossible. He cut me off gently, his voice quiet but firm. You are not just anything. The silence that followed felt sacred. The firelight danced across his face, catching the faint scars along his neck, the ones whispered about by the villagers. Marks from battles long past. For the first time, I wondered if those scars were only physical. I've seen this before, he continued. When a bond forms between souls fated to meet, it manifests through signs, shared dreams, familiar voices, reflections in the moonlight. I dismissed them for years, believing the Luna was my destined one. But every vision, every echo led to you. My chest tightened painfully. And your Luna? I asked quietly, the words trembling out before I could stop them. His expression darkened. She was chosen by council decree, not by destiny. Our union was political. It brought peace, but not love. The revelation struck me like cold water. My mind struggled to hold the weight of it. The loneliness in his tone, the quiet tragedy behind his every word. I didn't want this bond to find you, he said softly, stepping closer. You deserve peace, not the burden of a king's curse. Something inside me broke open then, a mixture of fear, empathy, and undeniable pull. And yet here we are, I whispered. His gaze met mine again, steady and unguarded. Here we are, he echoed. The space between us felt charged, alive, not with desire, but with something deeper, something that hummed in my blood like an old memory. I could feel his energy reaching toward mine, gentle but unrelenting. Then suddenly the cottage shuddered. A gust of wind burst through the windows, extinguishing the fire in an instant. The air turned cold, and the shadows seemed to move on their own. I stumbled back, heart pounding. What's happening? His eyes flared silver, sharp with alarm. Someone knows. Before I could speak, a faint voice, familiar and haunting, filled the room. It wasn't human. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. She remembers now. The voice hissed, low and musical. You've broken the veil. I turned toward the sound, and there, just beyond the doorframe, stood a figure cloaked in smoke. Her shape flickered like a dying flame, but her presence was unmistakable. The Luna dot her eyes, glowing red like embers, locked onto mine. A cruel smile curved her lips. So this is the one, she said, her voice smooth but venomous. The woman who calls my husband's soul. The Alpha King stepped forward, placing himself between us. Leave her out of this, he commanded, his voice steady but trembling with restrained power. The Luna's laughter was soft and dangerous. Out of this? My dear king, she is this. Her gaze shifted to me again, her expression sharp enough to wound. Do you not know who you are, girl? My pulse thundered. Who I am? I whispered. The Luna tilted her head, her eyes glinting with cruel amusement. You think you were just a caretaker, don't you? Just a kind woman with a soft heart. No, you were his once, before I ever wore the crown. You are the soul he lost when the moon cursed him. The air went still. Even the shadows froze. The Alpha King's breath hitched, his eyes wide with recognition. No, he whispered, almost to himself. It can't be. The Luna's smile widened, cold and triumphant. Oh, but it is. You're not his savior, little caretaker. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to crawl through the room. You're his unfinished fate. And then, with a sound like shattering glass, she vanished, leaving only a chill and the echo of her words. I stood frozen, the world spinning around me, the fire dead, the silence deafening. The Alpha King's hand found mine, trembling. She spoke the truth, he whispered hoarsely. You were mine once, before the curse divided our souls. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me as the truth sank in. The dreams, the voice, the bond, it all made sense now. And as the wind howled outside like a mourning cry, I realized something that made my heart stop completely. The Luna hadn't just appeared to taunt us. She had come because the curse had started to break. The night after the Luna's appearance didn't feel real. The air itself trembled, as if the world had been struck and was still vibrating from the impact. I couldn't sleep. Every shadow flickered with the echo of her laughter. Every whisper of wind seemed to say my name, not with warmth this time, but with warning. The Alpha King stayed by the dying fire, his jaw tense, his eyes clouded with a storm of thought. We didn't speak much. Words felt too small for the weight of what had been revealed. By morning, the forest had changed. The air smelled of iron and ash, and the trees bent slightly, their branches leaning toward the cottage like they were listening. Even the children, who usually filled the mornings with laughter, were quiet and uneasy. Sierra clung to my skirt, her voice small. The moon is watching again, she whispered. I looked down at her and felt my heart twist. The Alpha King had left before sunrise, summoned to the palace to face his council. Rumors spread quickly. The Luna had fallen ill, her body weakening as if something sacred was being drained from her. The pack whispered of betrayal, of curses, of forbidden bonds resurfacing from the old wars. And in every whisper, I heard my name carried like a ghost. The first signs of the world unraveling began with the forest itself. Animals fled in silent herds. Birds vanished from the skies, and the rivers ran slower, thicker, as if time itself was losing strength. The moon appeared during the day now, pale and ghostly, refusing to leave the sky. Inside me, something was changing too. I could feel my senses sharpening, my heartbeat sinking to rhythms I didn't understand. Sometimes I'd close my eyes and see flashes, moments that weren't memories but felt like them. A silver battlefield beneath a red moon. A wolf standing guard over me as I lay dying. The same voice, his, whispering a promise. When the curse breaks, I'll find you again. But with every vision came pain. A deep, aching pull behind my ribs. As if two parts of me were trying to become one again, and the strain was tearing me apart. That evening, the Alpha King returned. His cloak was torn, his hands streaked with blood. Not his, but someone else's. His face was pale with exhaustion, but his eyes burned bright. What happened? I asked, my voice trembling. "The council knows," he said, his tone rough. "They think you're the source of the Luna's sickness. They're calling it treason against the throne." I froze. "Treason?" He nodded. "They want you exiled. Some demand worse." A cold weight settled in my stomach. "And what do you want?" He didn't answer at first. His silence said more than any words could. Finally, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I want to keep you safe. But to do that, I may have to choose against my own blood." The fire between us flickered weakly. My throat tightened. "If you defy them, you'll lose your crown." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. The crown means nothing without the one it was meant to protect. Something inside me broke open. I wanted to tell him how much his words meant, how deeply I felt this impossible bond, that fear tightened its grip around my heart. "You can't," I whispered. "If the Luna's dying, they'll blame you too. They'll destroy you." "I would rather fall," he said quietly, "than live cursed by a lie." Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed outside. The children screamed from upstairs. We ran to the door, and what we saw froze the breath in our lungs. The forest was burning, not with flame, but with light. Silver fire poured through the trees like liquid moonlight, devouring everything in silence. The air pulsed with energy so powerful it made my skin sting. "The veil is breaking," he said under his breath. "The curse is unraveling faster than it should." The sky cracked open with thunder, though there were no clouds. I could feel it too, the connection between him and me growing stronger, almost unbearable. It wasn't just emotion now. It was power. The same ancient bond that had once destroyed worlds was stirring again, and with it came danger. Suddenly, pain shot through my chest. I fell to my knees, gasping. The Alpha King caught me before I hit the floor. My vision blurred with flashes. The Luna's face twisted in fury, the silver wolf howling under a blood-red moon, the children crying in a place that was both here and not here. What's happening to me? I choked out. He held me close, his voice desperate. "She's trying to pull you back into the curse. She's using your shared past against you." Through the pain, I saw something shift in his eyes, a mix of fear and determination. "There's one way to stop it," he said. I shook my head weakly. "No, I can't let you." But he wasn't listening anymore. He moved quickly, pulling a silver pendant from beneath his armor, a talisman glowing faintly with blue light. "This is the heart of the pact that bound our souls long ago," he explained, his tone urgent. "If I destroy it, the curse ends. But so does everything that ties us together." The room went silent. Even the forest seemed to pause. I stared at him, shaking my head in disbelief. "You can't. If you break it, you'll forget me." He closed his eyes. "If forgetting you means keeping you alive, then I'll bear it." Tears blurred my vision. "No," I whispered. "You've carried this curse long enough. Don't lose what's left of your heart because of me." But his hands were steady. The pendant burned brighter, its light spilling across his face, making him look otherworldly. "You once gave your life to save me," he said softly. "Now it's my turn to return the debt." Before I could reach for him, a wave of energy burst through the cottage, shattering windows and extinguishing the fire. The pendant cracked in his palm, releasing a light so blinding I screamed and covered my face. When the light faded, he was gone. Only silence remained, thick, suffocating, absolute. Outside, the burning silver fire vanished. The forest fell still. The air turned cold again, lifeless. I stumbled to the doorway, my heart pounding in disbelief. The moon hung low and pale in the sky, unmoving. The Alpha King was nowhere to be seen. Only his cloak lay at the edge of the forest, torn and smouldering faintly in the moonlight. I sank to my knees, the pendant's shattered pieces glittering like fallen stars in my hands. The curse was broken, but so was my world, dotted deep within the forest. A single wolf's howl rose low, mournful, and endless, as if it were crying for something it could no longer remember. The story wasn't over. It had only just begun again. The days after the Alpha King vanished were heavy with silence. The cottage felt emptier than ever, though the children remained, their soft breathing the only sound that reminded me I was still tethered to this world. I sat by the window for hours, staring at the forest edge where his figure had disappeared. Each tree seemed to hold a memory, each shadow a secret I couldn't reach. My heart ached with a longing I could barely name. Then one morning, something unexpected happened. A soft knock came at the door. My pulse quickened before I even moved. I opened it to find an elderly woman, her eyes pale and knowing, her presence quiet but commanding. She held a small carved box in her hands, tied with a ribbon that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. "I've been waiting for you," she said, her voice calm yet carrying weight. "It's time you learn the truth about yourself. And about him." I stepped aside wordlessly, my hands trembling. The woman entered, placing the box on the table. "Open it," she said simply. Inside I found letters and journals, bound in soft leather and carefully preserved. The handwriting was elegant, familiar in a way that made my chest tighten. I picked up the first one and read aloud. "To the one who holds my heart across time. Even when I cannot remember you, even when the world would deny our bond, know this. Our souls have always sought each other." I swallowed hard. The words resonated deeper than anything I had ever read. "Who wrote these?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The Alpha King," the woman said, nodding. "Before the curse was placed on him, before he was bound to a destiny that wasn't his own, he wrote these letters. Each one to you, though you were not yet in this life." I felt my hands shake. But how could he have known me? I wasn't even born. The woman smiled faintly. "You are a soul tethered to his own. Time is different for those bound by such fate. You were meant to find each other again, and now you have." Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes. I realized, with a rush of emotion, that the connection I had felt all along wasn't just instinct or magic. It was history, centuries of longing, devotion, and waiting. I remembered the dreams, the whispers, the silver wolf beneath the blood-red moon. They weren't accidents. They were echoes of a love that had survived lifetimes. "Why didn't he come back?" I asked, my voice breaking. The woman's expression softened. "Because the curse wasn't fully broken. He sacrificed his memory to end it, to save you and the children. What remains of him is scattered in the wind, in the forest, in your heartbeat. He cannot return until you understand what binds you, until you claim the truth of your own heart." I sank into a chair, my hands clutching the letters. Everything I had felt, everything that had stirred beneath my ribs, now made sense. The bond I had felt with him, the warmth, the pull, the inexplicable certainty, it was real. It was old. It was ours. And yet, it was fragile, scattered, and hidden beneath layers of time, magic, and sacrifice. The elderly woman watched me silently, then spoke again. "There is more. You must understand your role in this story. You are not just a caretaker. You are a guide, a guardian, a piece of his soul restored in this lifetime. Every choice you make matters more than you know." I looked down at the letters, feeling the weight of her words. I had been so focused on fear and longing. I hadn't realized the magnitude of what I carried, and what he had carried for me. Every moment of quiet, every whispered word, Every flicker of connection had been part of a greater plan. I looked up, determination settling in my chest. How do I find him? I asked. The woman's eyes glimmered with a strange light. You already have. Every time you felt his presence, every time your heart raced without reason, every time the forest seemed alive. That is him, reaching for you. Trust the bond. Follow it. And when the time is right, he will remember. You will remember. Together, you will reclaim what was lost. Her words echoed long after she left. The box of letters, the journals, the echoes of history. They were all tangible proof of something I had felt all along. I wasn't imagining the pull, the warmth, the strange electricity in the air whenever I thought of him. It was real. That evening, I returned to the forest edge. The moon hung low and heavy, pale as silver on black water. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying faint sounds that almost felt like words. I closed my eyes, letting the bond guide me. I thought of him, the Alpha King, the Silver Wolf, the man who had sacrificed his memory to save me. And then I felt it. The shift in the air. A vibration beneath my skin. A pulse that matched my heartbeat. It was him. I opened my eyes. And there he stood at the edge of the trees, cloaked in shadow. His form still wavering between man and wolf. His eyes caught mine, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of recognition. A history, a lifetime, a love reborn. I stepped forward, and so did he. A bridge of understanding formed in that silent space between us. No words were needed. Every heartbeat, every breath, every flicker of movement told a story older than the forest itself. But then, just as I reached him, the wind shifted, and a faint shimmer appeared between us. A barrier of silver light, unstable and threatening. My chest tightened as I realized it wasn't natural. The luna's influence lingered, subtle but present, like a shadow stretching across the path we were meant to walk together. He noticed it too, and his jaw tightened. She hasn't given up, he whispered, voice low, urgent. Even after all this, she's still trying to claim what was never hers. I took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin, the pulse of his energy. Then we face it together, I said, my voice firm despite the fear curling in my chest. He nodded, eyes gleaming with that same silver fire I had come to know. Together, he echoed, and in that moment, I understood the truth in a way I never had before. The bond between us wasn't just love. It was destiny, sacrifice, and courage wrapped together. It was a force that no curse, no counsel, and no shadow could ever fully sever. But just as we stepped forward, the silver light flared, blinding us both, and in the brief, shimmering chaos, I saw her, the Luna, standing at the forest's edge once more, her eyes bright with fury, a smile twisting her lips. This time, she wasn't just a warning. She was a challenge, and I knew, deep in my heart, that the next choice we made would change everything. The forest was alive in a way that made my skin prickle, as if it were aware of the battle brewing between destiny and will. The trees leaned in closer, their leaves whispering warnings I could barely understand. The moon hung high, silver and sharp, casting long shadows that seemed to move of their own accord. I felt his hand in mine, warm, steady, but even that comfort trembled under the weight of the uncertainty pressing against us. The Luna stood at the edge of the clearing, her form framed by the pale moonlight. She was silent at first, but her presence alone made the air thick with tension. Her red eyes glimmered with a fury that had no end, and the faint shimmer of silver energy around her told me she had not given up, not for a moment. She wanted to reclaim what she believed was hers. and she had power beyond what either of us could resist. The Alpha King's grip tightened around my hand. "Stay close," he said quietly, but I felt the tension in his body, the strain of trying to control a situation that was already slipping beyond reason. His silver eyes scanned her, calculating, wary, but I saw something in his expression. Doubt. He had faced countless dangers as king. But this was different. This was personal. This was about us. "I told you," the Luna said finally, her voice smooth but carrying an edge that made my blood run cold. "You belong to me. You always have. You think time or fate can change that? You are mine by right, by power, by history. I wanted to step forward, to stand for the bond I knew in my heart, but fear rooted me in place. The energy in the air made it difficult to breathe. Every instinct screamed that we were walking into a storm that could destroy everything. "I am not yours," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "He and I, we are connected in ways you can't understand. You can't take that from us." The Luna laughed, a soft, dangerous sound that seemed to wrap around the trees themselves. "Understand?" she repeated. "You are but a shadow of what he remembers. A fragment of a bond that was never fully yours. I am the past. I am the power. And I will reclaim him." The Alpha King moved slightly in front of me, shielding me without a word. His eyes softened as they met mine, but the shadow of worry lingered there. "Do not engage her directly," he warned. "Her power is tied to anger and memory. If she strikes, it will hurt both of us." I nodded, though my heart twisted at the thought of remaining passive while she threatened what we had just begun to reclaim. I wanted to fight for us. I wanted to fight for him. But there was no physical battle we could win here. Only the struggle of wills, of energy, of ancient power that far exceeded my own. The Luna's energy flared suddenly, throwing waves of silver light across the clearing. Leaves trembled and the wind whipped into a frenzy. I grabbed the Alpha King's arm instinctively, feeling the raw force push against my chest like it wanted to tear me in two. I could feel the threads of our bond strain under her presence. The air between us was electric, alive with possibilities I could not control. "I will not lose him," she hissed, moving closer, her figure flickering like smoke in the moonlight. "You are nothing but an illusion." And then she did something I did not expect. She reached out, her hand brushing the air between us, and I felt it, a sharp tug at the bond connecting me to him. It was as if a part of him was being pulled toward her, and my heart broke in response. My chest ached, my mind screamed, and for the first time, I feared that destiny might not favor us after all. The Alpha King stumbled slightly, his silver eyes flashing with pain. He tried to resist, his hands clenching mine so tightly it hurt, but I could see the struggle, the battle between the past, the Luna, and what he remembered, what he truly felt for me. My soul screamed in tandem with his, a silent plea to stay. "Stop," I shouted, my voice raw with emotion. "She has no right. This bond is ours." He looked at me, the weight of the world in his eyes. "I know," he said, his voice strained. "I feel it, I remember it. But her power, she's testing every part of me. We must be patient. We must endure." I nodded, swallowing back the tears threatening to fall. But my chest burned, my stomach twisted with helplessness. I wanted to reach out, to pull the memories from him, to anchor him back to the present. But I had no power to do so. I was tethered to him, yes, but not strong enough to fight the Luna's grasp entirely. She circled us, her movements slow and deliberate, every step a reminder that she had been part of him long before I had. The tension in the air thickened until it was almost suffocating. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable breaking point. "I will not give you what is mine," she whispered, her voice now almost intimate, almost sad. "Even if it costs you everything you've built." Her energy surged, and suddenly the clearing erupted in silver light. I felt myself thrown backward, crashing against a tree. Pain shot through my shoulder, but I barely noticed it, my focus locked on him. He moved to me immediately, his form shimmering between man and wolf as he pushed back against the luna's force. He caught me in his arms, his eyes full of determination and anguish. "We have to leave," he said urgently, his voice low. "We cannot fight her here. Not yet. Not without knowing what she will do." I nodded, though my heart ached with the thought of leaving the battlefield unresolved. The luna's laughter followed us as we stumbled through the forest, her presence like a shadow at the edge of vision, always watching, always waiting. Finally, we reached a small clearing far from the chaos, and he set me down gently. His hands cupped my face, and for a moment we simply looked at each other. "I will protect you," he whispered, "even if I have to lose myself to do it." I swallowed hard, my own voice barely audible. "I will wait for you," I said. "No matter what." He nodded, but the sorrow in his eyes mirrored my own. The luna's power is stronger than I expected. She knows the past. She knows the bond. And she will not stop until she has claimed her victory. The wind rustled the trees, carrying a faint echo of her laughter. I shivered, sensing that this was far from over. The bond between us pulsed with unspoken promises, that now it was tested, strained, and threatened by forces neither of us could fully control. We stayed there for hours, neither speaking nor moving, letting the night wrap around us. I clung to him as best I could, knowing that love alone might not be enough to withstand what was coming. And as dawn crept over the horizon, casting pale light through the trees, I realized something that made my heart shatter quietly. We were together, yet already divided. The Luna had won the first round, and the true struggle, the fight between destiny, choice, and the unyielding pull of our bond, had only just begun. The forest was a storm of silver light and shadows that night, as if the trees themselves were aware of the struggle unfolding beneath their branches. I could feel the air crackle with energy, the pull of powers far older than I could comprehend. The Alpha King and I moved carefully, our steps measured, hearts synchronized. Every beat seemed amplified, every whisper of wind carrying the tension between us. The luna's presence lingered like a shadow on the edge of our vision, invisible yet undeniable. "Stay close," he whispered, his silver eyes glinting with a mixture of fear and determination. His hand found mine instinctively, the familiar warmth grounding me amidst the chaos. "This is where the choice will be made." I swallowed, gripping his hand tightly. "I'm ready," I said, though my voice trembled. "Whatever it takes." Ahead, the Luna emerged from the trees like a living shadow. Her red eyes burned in the moonlight, her expression cold and calculating. "So, you've finally come," she said, her voice smooth yet sharp. "I wondered how long it would take for you to realize the bond you think you hold is fragile at best." The Alpha King stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of me. "You've underestimated her," he murmured. "But this ends tonight." I felt the tension coil in my chest like a live wire. Everything we had endured, every stolen glance, every whispered promise, every shared heartbeat led to this moment. And yet, I knew the outcome was uncertain. The Luna's power was formidable, and she had history, strategy, and malice on her side. She smiled, a cruel twist of lips that made my stomach tighten. History means nothing if it is ignored, she said. You were mine before. You cannot escape what is written. History doesn't dictate the future, the Alpha King replied firmly. We choose our own fate. The words resonated with a deep power. I could feel his energy intertwining with mine, our bond surging outward, pushing against the invisible chains the Luna had tried to tighten around us. A soft hum of silver light filled the clearing, emanating from the Alpha King, wrapping around both of us. The forest trembled in response. The Luna's eyes narrowed. You think your bond can overpower me? You do not understand what is at stake. I realized then that it wasn't just about him, or me, or even the children. The fate of the pack, the forest, the delicate balance of forces older than memory, was entwined with our choice. And for the first time, I understood the true weight of the word sacrifice. The confrontation escalated quickly. Energy surged in waves, rippling through the trees and striking the ground with the force of an unspoken battle. I felt my chest tighten as though the wind itself pressed against me. The Luna's power was seductive and overwhelming, designed to fracture the mind and test the heart. And in that moment, I realized the truth of her strategy. She was not just attacking our bond, she was trying to make us doubt it. Do you trust me? The Alpha King asked suddenly, his eyes piercing mine, holding the silver fire of unwavering certainty. I didn't hesitate. With everything, I said. He nodded once and took a step forward, moving toward the Luna. I followed, though I knew the choice I was about to make could change everything. As we approached her, the air around us shimmered, and I felt the pull of every memory, every emotion, every shared heartbeat with him intensify. The Luna's voice dropped to a whisper, almost intimate. You will falter. You cannot withstand the past. You cannot claim what was never fully yours. And yet we did not falter. Together we stood as one, letting the energy of our bond surge outward. The forest seemed to respond, the silver fire in the trees, the whispers of the wind, even the distant cries of wolves, all attuned to the strength we projected. For a fleeting moment, I felt invincible. I felt that nothing could break the connection we had fought so hard to reclaim. But then came the choice. The Luna's eyes glowed brighter, her form flickering with light and shadow. One of you must relinquish everything to end this, she said. One of you must give up the bond, the memory, the connection that defines your soul. Only then will the chaos cease. The Alpha King looked at me, his silver eyes full of anguish. It cannot be both of us, he said quietly. One must sacrifice to protect the other. I felt my breath catch. My mind spun with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. I thought of the children, of the pack, of the quiet moments that had stitched our hearts together. And I realized that the choice was mine. I will do it, I whispered, my voice trembling. I will give up the bond if it keeps you safe. He shook his head vehemently. No, I will not let you carry this alone. I will bear it, whatever it costs. Tears blurred my vision, and for a moment the world seemed to collapse. The Luna's laughter echoed around us, a cruel melody. Decide, or lose everything, she said. I stepped forward, feeling the pull of destiny and love clash violently inside me. The energy around us surged, silver and red intertwining in the air. I reached out, touching the Alpha King's chest, feeling the warmth of his heart, the rhythm of his life. We cannot let her win, I said. Together we face it. If we are to sacrifice, it will be together. For the first time, I saw hesitation in the Luna's eyes. She hadn't expected defiance. Not like this. Not united. The Alpha King and I joined hands, our bond pulsing visibly in the air like a living force. The silver energy wrapped around us, intertwining with her red light, colliding in sparks and waves. The forest trembled and the ground seemed to shift beneath our feet. And then, in a moment that felt suspended outside of time, a sudden, blinding surge of light erupted from the center of our bond. The Luna screamed, a sound that tore through the air and rattled my very soul. When the light faded, she was gone, vanished into the shadows, leaving only the echo of her fury. But the cost was immediate and shocking. The Alpha King collapsed to his knees, his eyes wide and unseeing. His hands reached for me, but his gaze was distant, as though a part of him had been severed. My chest tightened in panic. "No! Stay with me!" I cried. He shook his head weakly, struggling to focus. I remember pieces, but not all." His voice trailed off, laced with confusion and fear. "I don't know who I am fully." Yet, I sank beside him, holding his hand tightly, my heart breaking as I realized the depth of the sacrifice. The Luna's challenge had been neutralized. Yes, but the Alpha King now existed in a fragile state. Memory fractured, the bond intact but incomplete. Our love remained, but its clarity, its certainty, had been obscured by forces beyond us. And in that moment, the forest fell silent. The moon hung pale in the sky, shadows long and still. I knew the story was far from over. We were together, but we were not whole. The night closed around us, leaving only uncertainty, lingering power, and the aching knowledge that the next step would demand everything: trust, courage, and the strength to face what neither of us fully understood. And as I held him close, whispering promises into the cold night air, I realized the truth that would haunt us both. The real test was just beginning. The dawn came slowly, brushing the forest with pale gold that felt almost fragile, like it could shatter with a single misstep. I sat beside the Alpha King, feeling the quiet weight of the fractured bond between us. He looked at me with silver eyes that shimmered, though the clarity of memory still wavered. Every heartbeat, every breath, carried the tension of all we had endured. The Luna's challenge, the cursed past, the stolen moments of certainty. I can feel you," he whispered, voice hoarse with effort. "But pieces are missing. It's like I'm here and somewhere else at the same time." I squeezed his hand, letting my warmth seep into him. "It's okay," I said softly. "We'll find the pieces together. We always do." He shook his head, frustration flickering across his features. "But what if the pieces are gone forever? What if the Luna's power took more than she revealed?" I looked up at him, the morning light catching in his silver hair, and for a moment, I allowed myself to imagine the impossible. I leaned close and placed my forehead against his. "Then we rebuild. Together. That's the power of our bond. That's the strength we've carried through centuries. That's the love that no curse can erase." His breath hitched, and I saw a spark of recognition ignite in his eyes. A memory, fleeting but potent, washed over him like sunlight breaking through clouds. He blinked rapidly, as if trying to hold on to it. You said this once before," he murmured. "In the dream, under the red moon." "Yes," I whispered, feeling the ache of those lost moments in my chest. "I said it then, and I say it now. No matter the challenge, no matter the danger, I choose you. I always have." The forest responded to our bond, the air shimmering with silver light, leaves rustling as if in approval. And then, through the quiet, came the sound of movement, soft, cautious, deliberate. The Luna had returned, though she no longer radiated anger. Instead, there was curiosity, tension, and a trace of respect in her crimson gaze. "You're still here," she said, her voice lower, almost reverent. "Even after everything." I rose slightly, stepping protectively closer to him. "Yes," I said firmly. "We're still here, together, and we won't falter again." The Luna's eyes softened, the edges of her power shifting like mist. Perhaps I underestimated the strength between you," she admitted. "It's not just love. It's choice, will, and I see now that some bonds are not easily broken, even by me." The tension in the air remained, but it changed, subtle and transformative. It was no longer purely threatening. It was the final test, not of power, but of commitment, of courage, of the willingness to face sacrifice for the sake of what mattered most. The Alpha King took a step forward, his hand brushing mine. The bond between us pulsed visibly, threads of silver light connecting us like lifelines. "If we are to truly end this," he said quietly, "we must confront the truth of what we are. I must remember fully, and you must trust me completely." I nodded without hesitation. "I trust you with everything. Every piece of my heart, every memory, every breath. We face this together." The Luna watched silently, her red eyes flickering, her hands raised slightly, as if sensing the tension and waiting to see who would move first. And then, in a motion so swift it was almost imperceptible, she extended her energy toward us. But this time, it did not assault. It illuminated. Silver and crimson intertwined, flowing over us in waves that shimmered like liquid light. The Alpha King's eyes widened. Memories flooded back. Flashes of laughter under moonlight, whispered promises beneath the stars, moments that spanned lifetimes. His chest rose and fell rapidly, heart straining against the surge. I felt it too. His recognition, our bond solidifying, growing stronger, sharper, unbreakable. Through the intensity of the moment, I whispered, "I am yours, as you are mine. No curse, no past, no power can change that." He exhaled sharply, the release shaking him from head to toe. "I remember everything," he said, voice raw and trembling. "I remember you, us, this bond, and I would endure 1,000 lifetimes to hold you again." The Luna's energy shifted once more, then slowly retreated, her expression unreadable. "So be it," she said quietly. "The bond is true, and its strength is undeniable. You have earned it. But remember, with choice comes responsibility, and with love comes sacrifice." I turned to him, my heart racing. "We will face it together," I said. He smiled, tentative but genuine, pulling me into a gentle embrace. For a moment, the world fell away. The children's laughter, the whispering trees, the silver fire of the forest, none of it mattered except the certainty of this moment. The power of the bond restored. And then came the final test of the night. A surge of energy that wrapped around us. Not violent, not threatening, but transformative. It flowed into me, into him, threading through our very souls, illuminating every hidden corner, every shadowed memory. Pain intertwined with joy, loss with recovery, fear with courage. It was a full, all-encompassing recognition of everything we had endured, and everything we were willing to endure for each other. When the energy faded, we were still entwined, but something within us had shifted profoundly. Our bond was no longer just emotional. It was spiritual, timeless, and unbreakable. We were no longer merely surviving a curse or a challenge. We were embracing the depth of who we were meant to be. The Alpha King drew back slightly, cupping my face in both hands. His silver eyes glimmered with tears, with relief, with something eternal. "We are whole," he whispered, Not because the curse ended, but because we chose each other. Every single time, we choose each other. I smiled, warmth spreading through me like sunlight after a long winter. And I will keep choosing you, I said, my voice soft but unwavering. In that instant, the Luna bowed her head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. She faded into the shadows, leaving only the echoes of the trials we had overcome. The forest exhaled, the air lightening, the tension dissolving into quiet harmony. Yet, as the first rays of true sunlight filtered through the trees, I knew the final act had not yet come. The bond was restored, the memories reclaimed. But the world beyond the forest waited, with challenges, responsibilities, and moments that would test the Alpha King and me in ways we could not yet imagine. I leaned into him, feeling his heartbeat steady beneath my hand. "We have survived the storm," I murmured, "and together, we can face whatever comes next." He pressed his forehead to mine, his voice low and tender. "Together," he echoed, the word carrying weight, promise, an eternity. And as the forest brightened around us, I understood something profound. Love, destiny, and choice were not separate. They were entwined. A force that could break curses, bridge time, and heal even the deepest wounds. But beyond the light, beyond the forest, I could sense whispers of the world waiting. A reminder that even in triumph, the story continues, and the true test of heart, courage, and devotion was only beginning. The forest was quiet in a way that felt sacred, as though it too recognized the journey we had endured. Dawn stretched across the horizon, painting the sky with strokes of gold and rose. The air smelled of earth and dew, crisp and alive, carrying the faintest whispers of the trials that had passed through it. I stood beside the Alpha King, feeling the full weight of what we had survived. The bond between us steady, radiant, and unbroken. The children ran toward us from the clearing, laughter ringing through the morning light. Their joy was unguarded, pure, a reminder of everything that mattered. The little hearts we had protected, the hope we had nurtured, the future we were now free to claim. I knelt to gather them into my arms, their warmth grounding me, their trust a mirror of the bond I shared with the Alpha King. He watched us, a gentle smile playing across his lips, silver eyes shimmering with quiet awe. The weight of past trials still lingered in him, but now it was tempered by understanding, love, and a newfound clarity. He reached for my hand, and our fingers entwined naturally, as if we had always belonged together, because we had, across time and lifetimes. The bond, it's stronger than I imagined, he said softly, kneeling beside me so that our shoulders brushed. It survived doubt, power, even the past itself. And here we are, still standing. I looked up at him, my heart swelling with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and profound love. We survived because we trusted it, because we trusted each other, I replied. Nothing can undo what's real, not even centuries or curses. The forest seemed to respond, the leaves rustling in soft applause, the sunlight glimmering like liquid gold on every surface. Even the trees themselves, ancient and silent witnesses, seemed to bend slightly toward us, as if honoring the completion of something far greater than any one lifetime. He drew me close, and I rested my head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that now felt wholly mine. "I don't know what the future will bring," he admitted, voice low, thoughtful. "But I do know this, whatever comes, we face it together. Always." I smiled, feeling the warmth of certainty settle into every fiber of me. "Always," I echoed, letting the word carry everything we had endured. Every fear and hope, every whisper of doubt, and every triumph. As we stood there, Wrapped in the quiet magic of dawn, the Luna appeared one final time, stepping lightly from the shadows. But there was no menace in her eyes now, only acknowledgement. She bowed slightly, a gesture of recognition, and spoke softly. "The bond is true. You have earned it. Protect it, cherish it, and let it guide you. The past is yours to remember, but the future is yours to shape." Then she faded, leaving nothing but a faint shimmer in the morning light, a reminder that challenges would always exist, but so would strength, love, and choice. The children tugged at our hands, eager to continue their play, and we let them lead us toward the open clearing. Their laughter intertwined with the morning breeze, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself to breathe freely. The weight of worry, fear, and uncertainty had lifted, replaced by a deep, enduring calm. We walked together. A family bound not just by blood or circumstance, but by heart, choice, and destiny. The Alpha King's hand never left mine, and I could feel the subtle pulse of his strength and protection through the bond that had withstood so much. In that touch was the promise of all the days to come. The ordinary and extraordinary, the mundane and the magical. I thought back to the letters, the journals, the whispers of a love that spanned lifetimes. Each word, each memory had brought us here. And now, finally, the story felt whole. The mystery, the trials, the tests, they had not broken us. They had refined us, tempered the bond, and allowed it to shine with clarity, depth, and permanence. The Alpha King bent to kiss the top of my head, a gesture tender yet filled with quiet reverence. "You are my heart," he whispered, "the truest part of me I ever knew." I pressed my cheek to his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. "And you are mine," I replied. "Always. In every lifetime, through every shadow and beyond." We stood there for a long while, watching the sun rise fully over the treetops, each ray of light catching the dew, illuminating the forest in warm brilliance. It felt like the world itself was blessing the bond we had fought so hard to reclaim, sealing it with the glow of dawn. Finally, I let go of the tension that had held me for so long and looked toward the horizon. The light spread across the sky, golden and unyielding, touching the tops of trees, the edge of the river, and even the small cabin that had been our refuge. In that light, everything seemed possible. Every fear, every shadow, every lingering question of destiny dissolved in the glow of what we had earned. Love, trust, and choice. The Alpha King pulled me close once more, wrapping me in an embrace that spoke of protection, devotion, and eternity. "This is our moment," he murmured. "The past has passed, the challenges are behind us, and the future is ours to shape." I nodded, feeling tears prick my eyes, not of sorrow, but of overwhelming gratitude. "Yes," I said softly. "Ours to shape, together." We held each other as the sun climbed higher, a perfect symbol of renewal and hope. And as the light touched the forest floor, I looked around at the children playing, at the trees swaying gently, at the quiet magic lingering in the air, and realized that every trial, every heartbreak, every moment of uncertainty had led to this. A bond restored, a love unbroken, and a family united by choice, courage, and destiny. And in that perfect still moment, I lifted my gaze to the horizon, where the sun, a brilliant golden sphere, rose fully over the forest. Its light spilled across the world, touching everything with warmth and promise. I knew then that this was more than an ending. It was a beginning where love could thrive, truth could guide, and destiny could finally rest in our hands. The sun hung there, steady, radiant, and eternal, as if the universe itself had paused to honor the bond that had survived everything. And in that light, I found peace, strength, and an unshakable certainty. We were finally home.